When I say real-time marketing, what if you could take a pause and then determine where the user should go? I'm sort of embarrassed that other big companies haven't figured this out, but to my knowledge, we're the only person or the only product that has this concept of variations on the link. Most people just hard code and everyone ends up at the same place, which is a lower return on ad spend and a lower click-through rate.
What are some of the maybe most unique or coolest ways some of your users have used links? Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution podcast. In this episode, we're joined by Scott Cate. Scott is a SaaS innovator with more than 3 decades of software experience. Since 1991, Scott has navigated software evolution. From the days of floppy disks to the cutting-edge cloud-native solutions we rely on today, he has served in key engineering roles at industry giants like Microsoft and Amazon. Having traveled to 52 countries and flown more than 2 million miles, he's experienced firsthand the challenges that global marketing teams face when it comes to managing links at scale. Join us today as we dive into techniques that create real-time marketing solutions using tools like 301 Pro, the leading global solution for ProLink routing, empowering marketers with an enterprise-grade rule engine for link management. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Wow, that's a lot. It's funny. On the last episode of yours I listened to, you were talking about your analytics and you were talking about how your show has been listened to in 50 countries. Mm-hmm. And I just realized listening to you, I've traveled to 52 countries. Like I've been in a lot of places.
That's crazy. You have. Yeah. I mean, I think being in 50 countries is pretty awesome, but actually being in 50 countries is pretty amazing. So when you say you traveled to 50 countries, are you counting just airports too, or feet on the ground, or when you actually go into the country and do some work?
Yeah. Well, how about this? Let me answer you in a minute because I know the format of your show. The first thing you're going to ask me is,
tell me about yourself. How about we just let's jump into that. I'm real excited about this. I know I was going to say, just kind of to preface to everyone, we've talked a lot about on this podcast, things like SEO that you do, and it takes a while for the marketing to catch up and show results. We do, paid advertising where it's turn on, turn off, and that we've done a lot of post nurturing stuff like that. But one thing that I think makes you stand apart from everyone is it's real-time marketing. And I have some other connections that I want to get on the show this year that have some AI that does similar things on website that turns real-time experience. I really think this is a big part of where the future is going. So I'm excited to jump into that. But before we do jump into it, Scott, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm old, so we'll start with that. I won't tell you my life story because that's a different podcast. But since I was a young kid in the 70s, my kids have a joke like, Dad, you're not talking about the 1900s again, are you? I'm like, okay. Since I was a kid in the 70s, my very first computer was a hand-me-down from a doctor's office that my mom worked in. And I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to type, but I did figure out how to turn it on. I had a little TV and looking at it. And I figured out, looking at some magazines, the first thing I accidentally did was format the hard drive. And then I was so I literally broke it and then had to fix it. And that was the beginning of my infatuation with the machine that would do exactly what you tell it. Unfortunately, the machine does exactly what you tell it, even if you tell it to do the wrong thing. As a programmer, you're like, why isn't it working? Oh, because I did it wrong. It's always my fault. But the satisfaction when it does work is just phenomenal. So that was sort of my head start in computing. I got my teacher in high school to let me take a typing class, but to do programming the whole time. So I already knew how to type, but my high school teacher actually let me do programming. Same teacher taught a spreadsheet class. And I took the spreadsheet class back to back. So I had typing and spreadsheets, and my computer teacher just let me program the whole time. So I sort of got lucky in high school because I just really had this infatuation with programming. And then I was enabled by this amazing computer at school that I could spend 2 hours on every day. Mm-hmm. In the intro, we talk about sending software on floppy disks. This is before the internet. This is before BBS. This is before AOL and dial-up, and like that stuff was just coming around. You get some floppy disks and a magazine.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've come a long way since then, and I've done a lot of things in the software, but at the end of the day, it's really trying to solve problems to make life easier for the person who's paying me money to solve a problem for them to be more productive in their life.
I think you're unique in that sense, where a lot of the people that I've interviewed, they didn't really get into digital until later on in their life. They didn't understand marketing or development or anything until like, oh, I was at college and, somebody introduced me to this like job or internship or agency or something like that.
Right.
I love talking to people who have been around it for a long time. I don't remember a time in my life where we didn't have a computer in our house. And I'm from a really small town in Utah, where me and my dad and my older brother were kind of known as like the computer guys. Like anytime somebody would get a virus or break, like we would go there, run the antivirus, defrag it, all of that. And it was
Nice.
like, we don't know how you did it, but thank you so much. And
So much
so
faster now.
I know it really is.
Defragging those old spindles was like the magic trick. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun
so many
to
good memories.
Oh, I've also interviewed people who were around. Obviously, you were around before Google, but talking about like Ask Jeeves and how it was like a digital Rolodex. There was no algorithm to it. It was just a bunch of inputs and hopefully the search worked, right? And so I'm curious to know the evolution of like programming. Like I'm sure when you first had that computer in the 70s, it's still not the programming language you use now. So how many times have you had to like relearn different programming languages? How do they stack on top of each other?
Yeah. I like what you said. That's a great question. My final answer, and then I'll back up a little bit. Language does not matter. I don't care if you have a cloud solution that's written in MS Basic or Python or Java or TypeScript or JavaScript or Go or C# or dot or like all the languages out there. None of them matter. There's 250 common languages throughout the world. You could start with like a top 10 that we could all probably rattle off. Everyone can communicate. Like the language doesn't matter. It just sort of tells the computer what to do. So I went from MS Basic. Gosh, I don't even know what the first thing that I'd actually programmed on was a Tandy TRS-80. I think that was some form of Basic. 10, 20, go sub, 50, return. Like it's probably not even the right language now, but, and then I went to Borland. Borland was the producer. It was, help me if you remember, real time. Now I'm proving I'm human and not scripted. What was the language? Anders Hauberg was the inventor of the language, which was interesting because I later got to work with him at Microsoft, having also invented C# and TypeScript. And that's how old I am.
I don't know.
Sometimes you forget things. Anyway, language doesn't matter as long as it solves a problem. And in fact, I even think sometimes more than one language is the best answer. Like the product that we're working in now is written in all kinds of languages. You've got TypeScript that's running on a server. You've got some PHP, some .NET. Like if you find a library that already does something, who cares what's behind it? It actually works. Yeah. And so I think the delivery is more important than the language. But English, Spanish, Japanese, French, German, they're all great languages. Like they can still communicate and then solve the problem. So I don't care what the language is as long as we can get to the solution.
So walk me through what happened after high school. Were you like, hey, I'm in this programming world for good?
Oh my gosh.
Or did you have like a jump off point to something else and then came back to it? Tell me that part of the story.
All right. I'll give you the shortest version that I can. Okay. I have been sort of a scrappy entrepreneur my whole life. Like I was always a hustler. My first real business was washing windows. And like literally I would go down a strip mall and like for $10, I would wash everybody's windows. And I did that. I built up a little bit of a business, sold that. And the person I sold it to worked at a software company. And so they're like, hey, you should work for us. Really small software company. This was like 1990, 91-ish, somewhere in those days. And so I started there in support, which is like back in the day, that's where everybody started in support. And then I was with that company for 10 years. It was a medical software company. I ended up running and sort of owning, if you will, the training department, which is where I started my domestic travel, teaching doctors how to do healthcare accounting. So I got into software with that particular project. As that company sold, one of the things that I had also done using Microsoft Access was I built a knowledge base product. And that sort of ran the customer support division where instead of everybody having to know everything, they could start to ask the system, like do a search, knowledge base. Then we started a BBS. Access drove the BBS with some of the answers. Then we started a website. And like that was sort of the beginning of my career. So then I went into support. After that company, I started a knowledge-based product. I started a search engine. I've started and sold an event-based management system and like all kinds of things. For a minute, I was competing with Google. This was like way back in the day. I had a product called ASP.NET, Easy Search ASP.NET. That was the title. You could probably look this up on the Wayback Machine. And it was a product that was a .NET control. I don't know if you know any programming, but you can put this .NET user control on your site, and then it would go out and then look back at your site and create a dictionary of all the content, and then basically give you a search box on your site for your own content. And it was a great product until Google came out with Google Search Console or something that sort of let you do the same thing. And I sort of instantly died overnight. All my customers just went to use that because it was free and it was better. But it was awesome at the time.
Yeah. Man, what a cool story. What was the search engine called? Do you feel like your website traffic is kind of in a slump right now? Or maybe over the last couple of weeks or months, it's actually dipped quite a bit and you cannot figure out what to do next? Go to fireusmarketing.com/meeting to schedule a free meeting with me where we can look at your website, talk about your frustrations, and see if there's anything that I can do to help you out. The meeting is absolutely free. There's no strings attached. If I can help you, I'd love to. Again, go to fireusmarketing.com/meeting. We'll talk to you soon.
EasySearchASP.net was the domain. So EASY, EASYSEARCH ASP.net, because it was ASP.net server control, which made the whole thing work. Yeah, it was a fun
I'm going to go look it up.
Piece of history. Okay, so awesome. From then, I created a database. And gosh, I don't know the exact year on this, but I'll just state it. It was like 3 years before Amazon S3. So my database is this magical website called CloudDB. And the domain is clouddb.com. And if you open that, you'll see I've since sold that to Microsoft, which is now part of SQL Azure. But clouddb.com was amazing. It was, do you know what Airtable is? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So I was like the first Airtable, but way before anybody would trust putting data somewhere else. So this is one of my big failure points, even though it sounds great because I sold it to Microsoft. I literally made $0 from that entire project. And it was a big engineering project that I funded. And it's like a huge failure. I feel like I was probably 5 years too soon, but that also might just be an excuse for the failure. Like it was a failure top to bottom.
But I mean, failures are a big part of entrepreneurship, and you live and you learn. And there's something to say about timing too, right? Timing is everything, especially in the digital world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been around the block. And actually, as I think of most of those projects, they had some form of link shortener involved with them. And, you know, the 301 project we'll talk about in a minute and how it evolved. I've built it so many times for so many people. That's where the product market fit sort of came in. It's like, oh, everybody loves this. Let's just build something to sell commercially. And that's sort of the evolution. HTTP status codes, do you know what a 404 is? So everybody SEO knows that, right? 500 is error, 301 is redirect. So that's the cute name we came up with.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. So I want to dive in and I want to talk about, the link shortening and real-time marketing and stuff. Before we do that, is there any projects you have going on outside of that excite you? Like maybe AI, or like that you're kind of like dabbling in to see,
like little side hustles?
Yeah.
Okay. I do actually. I have Well, like any good entrepreneur, I probably have like 400 domains,
Yep.
but one of them is particularly interesting and has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's really fun and it solves a problem for me that I gave out. And now I think the last time I looked, I have 25,000 monthly active users.
Hmm.
This hopefully is not a theme for my entire life, but I also have zero revenue from that project. I decided as a community give back that that this would be free. There's no ads. In fact, there's not even any user accounts, and I can track it because it's a calendaring system. So I live in Arizona. I'm a Suns fan. Sorry for the Jazz if you follow basketball.
Yep.
And I want the calendar I want all the games to show up on my Google Calendar. Well, it turns out that's harder to do than to say. And you're like, wait, there's just an ICS file. There's a calendar feed out there somewhere. If you go to NBA.com and you find your team, there is a calendar, but it sucks. And here's why. It's built by this company. I forgot the name. They require write access to your calendar to put the games on they like inject the games on your calendar, which I think is like a security thing. Like if I'm at work, like certainly if I'm at Microsoft, I can't give write access to my calendar to the NBA. And also you have to do that for every team you want to follow. So I spent a weekend and I threw together this site called Team Calendar, teamcalendar.com. And it lists all 4 of the major sport leagues in the United States. So football, basketball, hockey, baseball. And you can pick all your teams and then you get one calendar feed. And there's one button that you just say, click add to Google Calendar. And then it basically coalesces all of those games into an ICS file. That's all nerdy stuff if you don't understand it. It's literally one click button. And then you get all the games that you want on your calendar. A lot of people in Europe are asking me for football, international soccer. People ask for tennis. People ask for F1. But it's just sort of a hobby project. There's literally zero revenue. There's no ads. It doesn't cost very much to run it. And that's my side hustle, teamcalendar.com.
That's so cool. I bet you there are a lot of listeners out there that are going to use it. So you're going to go from 25,000 users to 25,007. I have a lot of listeners out there. All 7 of them are going to join that. And
yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a fun project. Do you know what a DAC board is? DAK?
No.
So it's this little thing that runs on a Raspberry Pi and you plug it in behind a TV. It's got HDMI out. And then they give you this beautiful, like, I don't know, infotainment system, if you will. And it's like $100. And they have remote screen setup. So I have one of those in our laundry room. And it's just a little TV, which is like literally $99 now from Walmart. I put this little DAC board, Raspberry Pi behind it. And that shows our family calendar. Grandma's on there for all the things that she has. My wife, my kids, we all use Google Calendar. And now at a glance, we can see who's doing what. And I can see the Suns games.
Oh, I love that.
That's literally why the whole thing was created, so that I could get the Suns games on my Google Calendar inside the laundry room, which is what we have to bypass to get in and out of the garage. So I see it all the time. I'm like, oh, there's a Suns game at 7 o'clock. In fact, there's a game tonight. I'm going to watch them hopefully beat the Pelicans. So
there you go. That's cool. That might be a good worker. I've seen a lot of the screens that people have to buy. They're like $500 and it has your family calendar on it and the kids do their chores and stuff. But it's not amazing. Like touchscreen. It's something that it just pulls in the Google calendars, right?
They have a touchscreen version of it as well. You just have to buy more expensive hardware. I mean, you could do like literally whatever you want. You should look it up. It's really cool. It's a project that's super old. It's called DAK BOARD, DAC board. And then they give you the software free if you have a Raspberry Pi, or you can buy like a little kit from them. And then they charge you, I think it's $8 a month for a subscription that lets you remotely update the screen. So that's $100 a year. And I use that and it's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's a cool little side. It's not the Team Calendar is a side hustle. DAC board is like the house DIY infotainment family setup deal. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife would love that because we're like, she has like a board that she just fills out once a month with all the stuff, but half the time it doesn't have my work stuff or anything on it. So I'm going to have to look into that. Appreciate that.
Here's a challenge for you and every one of your listeners. If you can get family grandma using Google Calendar, that's a win. Like it took us about 2 years, but now we got everything: doctors, vacations, church, like all the things are in Google Calendar. And now everybody just knows everything by just looking at your phone. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if this is going to come through on video. You won't be able to see the detail, but like you can sort of see the color codes. No, you can't. Anyway, it's like a rainbow of literally 1,000 things from everyone on our. So anyway, Google Calendar, get grandma on it.
Yeah, good news. Grandma's already on Google Calendar. We have a shared family calendar when we know if she's babysitting someone or not, and if she's out of town. So that's perfect for us to just connect it and make it visible. I love that.
Let me know if I can help. I'll show you what I did, but you'll figure it out. It's pretty straightforward.
Perfect. Okay, let's dig into the meat and potatoes of this. I really want to get into real-time marketing. I want to get into your software, how it works. If I'm a business owner out there, like what is it? How does it work? Why do I need it? Where can I go to get it? Let's talk through all that.
Okay. First, let's just talk about what it is and how to do it yourself. Because while I have a product and there is some magic in my product, for the most part, everything that we talk about, you could do yourself if you're a developer or if you're hiring an agency to do something for you. But we basically built a better Bitly. The majority of your audience will relate to Bitly. We love Bitly, by the way. Like they invented this. They're the 900-pound gorilla that has been around forever. So we just sort of took what they did and we've literally made it 100 times better with all the things that we're about to talk about. So for your audience that doesn't know Bitly, you can take a very short domain and turn it into a long domain. So, abc.com/123, that's the short link. Then that forwards you. Somebody clicks that, and then they end up at what we call the destination, or sometimes called the long link. Here's the problem. That's hard-coded. So when we say real-time marketing, what we do is we put a rules engine after the short link. And if you have no rules, then it just goes to the destination. Like at that point, it's exactly the same. Short link, long link, you're done. And for a lot of people, that's great. That actually works. So we have that as the most basic throwaway feature. Could also do that for a QR code. But when I say real-time marketing, what if you could take a pause right after the link was clicked and then determine where the user should go? And you're like, well, why would you want to do that? Well, because then in real time, you get to make a decision. So let's start with something really basic. Start with an event. Okay. So most of your audience has an event of some sort. There's a webinar, there's a conference, I'm speaking with you on a podcast, I'm traveling somewhere. And if I'm going to promote that, I'm like, hey, look at me on social media, click here to register. Let's say my event is, first of the month. So then here's my question for you. What happens on the second of the month? Like, what happens to all those links that you put out into promotion? In some cases, they'll never get clicked again, so it's fine. But if somebody does click, like it's in an email, like they go to the registration is closed page. What if in the workflow engine, you could say, after the first of the month, go to the YouTube video? Like it's the same link. We call it a ProLink. It's the same ProLink. And before the first of the month, it goes to registration. And you can even get fancier. You could say like, during this 1 hour window, go to the live stream, go to my Twitch page or YouTube or wherever the broadcast of the live event is. And then after that, go to a checkout form to buy the videos of the recording or YouTube. Like it's up to you. You can figure out whatever you want. So we call that a router. And that's very simply a date-based router, before, during, and after. And I mean, you could put in 10 of those rules if you wanted to. You could be like, in January, do this, February, do that. But the magic is the short link is the same. You don't have to go back and update the short link. That's already in the wild, so to say.
And especially if you like send it out to like your email list and share this with your friends and all of that, like it would be really hard to change all of that later. And so now you can be more strategic and say, go to this one after this day or after this hour or whatever.
Right.
I think that's great. So, okay. So keep going. I don't want to stop you.
Okay. So let's talk about something that the majority of your SEO-friendly audience knows, UTM tags. I call it the UTM source lie. Does that ring a bell to you? Do you know what that means? Like, here's my short link, UTM source. I'm going to share this on Twitter. So UTM source equals Twitter. And then what happens? You use that same link in the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to go create another link. And
Mm-hmm.
we have something that you can use called variations that solves that. I'll tell you in a minute. But
Okay.
UTM source really should be, where did this link come from? Like, that's the question you're trying to answer. So in our rules engine, we have variables. And the variables is the entire payload of everything that's available. So we talked about date time. So you can imagine we have things like hour, minute, day of week, time zone. Those are all variables that you can then put into the payload going forward to the final destination. When I say payload, I'm talking about the ultimate URL. So if you think about the URL, you have the protocol, HTTPS, then you have the subdomain, www, you have the domain, also sometimes called a host, then you have the hash mark, then you have the path, then the hash mark, then the query string. Every nook and cranny of that URL you can modify with our rules engine. So one of them is UTM source. So our rules engine says, add UTM source of refer host, if there is one. If there's not one, default to Twitter. So now if you send it from newsletter and I click through from Gmail, your UTM source is going to be Gmail. And if it's Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, the same link is going to have different UTM source to truly tell you where that link actually came from. So UTM lie, and really that particular feature, again, if you're a developer or if you're working with an agency, that's available at the payload level. Like you could easily build this for yourself in an afternoon to say, look at the referring host, fill in my UTM source. That way my Google Analytics will tell me the truth of where this is coming from. And if I don't have a referral source, then either leave it blank or fill it in with a default, because that was the intention of where the link originally was intended to use, which really should then be UTM campaign. But you get the idea. Like you have ultimate control over that entire URL. So this is going to keep getting better and better. So we have these ProLinks, and obviously you have more than one ProLink. Let's say you have a team of 10 people and you're doing a product launch. Again, we'll just say the first of the month. And so you naturally want to keep track of which person on your team is promoting the product launch at the first of the month. And people do blog posts, people do YouTubes, people do social media. Like there's lots of ways that everyone on your team is going to promote this. When I worked at Microsoft, we might have 150 people on our team. And if we have a big product launch that everybody's proud of, which we did many times, you'd want to know sort of the attribution of where all this traffic is coming from. The pain point, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is you would go create short links for every person on the team. And now it's on that person's job to sort of use that short link. Again, the short link is hard-coded though. So now if I'm like, hey boss, I want to put this in my newsletter and my Twitter and my Instagram. I'm like, okay, I'll give you 3 links. But now I have 10 people. So now that's 30 links. Like some people in your audience are feeling this pain. They know exactly what I'm talking about. So we've decided that the link can actually be very powerful to have the same link if you add something we call a variation. So let's break down the short link again. You have abc.com/press release. Like that's the short link. And that's mostly what people get. But if in our system, you can do /Scott, and that trailing /Scott, we call a variation, you can invent it on the fly. You can do whatever you want. /Scott, /Michelle, /Brent, /marketing, /Twitter, /Facebook. You can put whatever you want in there and it's a variation. So here's the cool part. Now you get attribution from the short link, which was press release. And then you also get reporting based on the variation of who reported that short link. So you have one link to manage, one link with rules, by the way. So if like after the product is announced, instead of going to the press release, you want to actually redirect to the new product, actual product page, you can just change that rule. And now all the hundreds of links with different variations in the wild start going to the new product page. Like, I'm sort of embarrassed that other big companies haven't figured this out, but to my knowledge, we're the only person or the only product that has this concept of variations on the link. And there's no programming. You just add a variation, like you just invent it as you need it, which is a little sloppy in the reporting. It's not perfect, but certainly that outweighs the dependency of somebody having to go create 30 or 100 different variations of literally the links going to the same page for attribution. So that's a fun feature.
So let me make sure I understand. So you say .com/press release, and then do you have to go and create it within your platform that says Scott, Eli, whatever? If I just take press release and I add Eli to it, it'll automatically come back. So I don't have to create it as the link creator. Right. You just send that .com/press release out to the team and say, hey, append your name to that.
Yeah.
And they do it and it works.
So we invented this feature. We call it variations, but you know what some of our customers use it for? Affiliate marketing. Because if I have 10 affiliates, I can say, hey, I want to promote this page and I'll give you $2 for everybody that you send to this page, or influencer marketing or whatever. In order to get paid, put your name after the URL. So /press release. We're saying /press release, but it could be /PR. It could be May 1st. It could be / anything that you want, and then /affiliate code or customer ID or variation of some sort. Variation is actually a great name for it because you can use it for any variety of the same link. But for affiliate marketing, people use that because they get all up reporting on the link. Then they get micro reporting on each variation. There is a drawback, and you sort of hit it on the head. Because I'm not making it formally 123 or Scott or marketing or influencer name 7, there's variations within the variation. Like I could be Scott space Cate or Scott plus Cate or Scott _ Cate. And then now I have to put those 3 together. But in general, if people want to get paid, they'll follow directions. So like, oh, this only works if you put and by the way, people don't even have to know that it's a variation. I'm just like, Mr. Adams, here's your link, press release /Adams. And you don't even know what that is. You just share it knowing that you're going to get $2 for everybody that follows through with it. Right. So it's a really powerful system. Variations / affiliate.
So from a data tracking standpoint, does it flow all the way through to like Google Analytics or any other analytics platforms as the UTM code? Or do you have to go into your platform to see all of those micro reports?
That's a great question. So anything you stuff in the URL, you're going to be able to get back through Google Analytics on the other side. So if you want to do that, you absolutely can. In fact, here's how it would look. You would set up a rule and you would say query string add UTM source or affiliate _ID, whatever you want to name your key in the key value pair. And the value would be curly bracket, variant. And you don't actually have to know that. The UI will tell you in our system that you can put the variant. And now basically anybody who clicks that rule is going to come through to whatever your landing page is. And it'll say affiliate _ID equals Scott or whatever the variant is that they used. But that's not really the answer to your question. The first part is if you stuff something in the query string, yes, it can flow through to Google Analytics. We have something that's called like basic reporting. And we have some variant reporting that will tell you clicks. It will tell you if it was a bot. It will give you, we have something called a human score that will tell you based on some heuristics that we inspect during the process of whether or not we think it's a real person versus a bot. We've actually got some really cool science there. For example, if the link generated from a data center, 99% it was a bot. It's not necessarily a bad thing, though. It could be a Google bot. And you're like, yes, come in, drink up all of my information and put me back in Google. Could be an LLM that you want to do something different with. Or it could be like a denial of service, in which case you want to do something bad. So we can actually change the response code for bots. You can send back a 500 server error. You can send back a 400, send a 429 for rate limited. Or you can send back a blank 200 payload that's literally no answer. And usually the bots then go away. So that's something else we have called bot management. But for a more advanced feature, this actually costs us real money. I think this is a $300 add-on. We have something called real-time analytics. And if you then tie in a Postgres database, we will write the analytics directly to you and not store them ourselves. So in that point, if you already have a Snowflake or a Google Bigtable or something that you want to synchronize on your side, we can actually in real time as the link is clicked, actually just after the link is clicked, because then the user doesn't have to wait for it. But like within milliseconds, you can keep the traffic on your own. Typically that's for an enterprise customer. But I think I sort of gave you all the versions of, we have very basic analytics. In the best world, you probably have low traffic and then our analytics are great for you. If that doesn't work, you can go to Google Analytics by using the query string. And if that doesn't work, you can sort of upgrade to real-time analytics as well.
I'm thinking about all the different ways that I would be using this. And in the last company, we were a $2 billion enterprise company. We had Snowflake, we had all of that. I can see all of that. As an agency, a lot of my clients, we put specific links with UTM codes in their Google My Business and, different blog posts and stuff like that. What are some of the maybe most unique or coolest ways some of your users have used links?
Okay. I mean, I have a lot of stories. Let me start with something that doesn't answer your question specifically, but is going to also be mind-blowing.
Okay.
So we've talked about these ProLinks in the name of a user action, like you're clicking an ad or you're opening a social media post or a link in an email. But remember, the internet works with, URL is Uniform Resource Locator, and lots of things can be behind that, including images. So we've done some things, and this will answer to one of our biggest text messaging customers. They're in the finance space. They have changed all of the Open Graph images on their website to be ProLink image links. So here's what that means. So for your audience, some of them are, and I've listened to your show, so I know like some of your audience just gets everything about SEO and they already know what I'm going to say. Other people are like, what was that Open Graph thing? So if you send someone a link to your website on your phone as a text message or through Slack or through Twitter or Facebook, there's this process called unfurling. It's UNFURLING. And when a website is unfurling, you're basically saying, here's a link I want to give to somebody. That website has a bot that will go out to the website and actually request the HTML. And in the HTML headers, if you open like 99% of websites on the website, you'll see meta tags that have OG colon and then something, key value pair. OG colon image is the one that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And that's the image that gets displayed to represent that page. So if I text you a URL, you have a nice little preview on your iPhone or Android that pops up. That works because of the Open Graph. So instead of just saying OG colon image equals background.png, you set the OG image to your short domain. So, we were using abc.com/images/weather.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's a rules engine. And we can say, if it's snowing, show this product when it's snowing or when it's raining or when it's sunny out. Or getting back to the exact scenario, because your question was, what's some of the cool things that your customers have done? This particular customer is in finance. They sell a product. It's basically a stock market education product. And there's a million of them, but they're really good at it. And they use 301 to send out their text messages. And so listen to this. First rule, if the stock market is open, do this. If it's closed, do that. Because they've figured out their buyer is a different mindset. Like if the stock market's open. Now, if the stock market's open and it's up, sell this course. If it's down, sell this course. Like, you can do all kinds of things. So here's the magic. And I hope some of your audience is following along with us, because you're literally sending text message. Let's say that you have 10,000 customers on a newsletter and you're going to blast this out through Twilio. It's the same payload to all 10,000 customers, the same link. mydomain.com/market update. Market update is the ProLink. That renders to a web page that has a ProLink inside it for the Open Graph. Here's the thing about text message, and this is where the real-time thing comes in. This is super important. I sort of asked this trick question, what time is it? And maybe people are listening and like, look at their watch. They're like, oh, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. Well, there really is no answer to what time is it. The next question follow-up is, where are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then when what point in time? So if I send out 10,000 messages, is the preview link created right now for 10,000 people? The answer is no. That preview link is on demand when you open the text message. So let's use that financial example. Let's say I send it at 10 a.m. on Monday, stock market's open. Like, I'm selling software. This is amazing. How to make money in the stock market. But you don't open the text message till 9 o'clock at night. And by that time, the stock market has gone down. When you do the preview, at that exact second is when the image is loaded. That's the real-time marketing part. When you're looking at the image is when you see the appropriate image. So we say real-time because we want to connect with the buyer's mindset right now. What time of day is it for them, not you? What time of day is it for them? Is it snowing? Is it raining? What's the temperature? Like, we have a really big, like, Fortune 10 clothing company. And as most of your audience knows, clothing is always behind. Like, it could be snowing out, but you go in the store and they're selling like bathing suits because bathing suits are like the next season.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the website with this company, and they're literally snowed in. And I won't say the city because it gives it away, but they're literally snowed in. Like, half the people are working from home because they can't drive to the office. And the homepage of the website is like flip-flops, which I think is great if you're like a travel agent or your destination. You're like, come here, it's nice and sunny. But they're like, yeah, we can't really control that because, it's seasonal. So they're using us in the text message. It's part of an awareness campaign. So obviously there's different types of text messages. Like, if you're sending a receipt, it probably doesn't matter because, like, here's what you just did right now out of the cash register. It's a receipt. But if you're sending an awareness campaign of, like, we have 30% off coming up for the holiday, it's great to know geography so you can do different things in Florida versus Sydney versus London, New York, obviously based on weather patterns. So at the end of the day, at the end of the day, we have location, time, and weather. Those are our three big variable buckets that you can then use to make decisions. Keep in mind, you don't have to do any of that. If you don't have any rules, you just have a short link to long link, and then perfect. And then it just works. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, this is awesome.
Okay. I got two more mind benders for you.
Okay.
The next one is QR codes.
Okay.
So if you burn a QR code into a commercial as part of a national campaign, print it on a billboard, put it in a magazine, how many people do you think have been, like, let go from the agency because the QR code had the wrong address in it? Like,
a lot. There was one just recently that happened on some toy, the Barbie toy or something like that.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember. And it went to a really inappropriate website because they missed like one letter or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I have this feature. I sort of lie about the name because I call it a dynamic QR code. The fact is the QR code's not dynamic. The QR code says, open this URL, but it opens a ProLink. And the ProLink then says, based on the location, do something. So we have a car manufacturer in the United States that uses this for their oil change program. And it's phenomenal. They're getting like 80% more open rates because on the postcard they send, in fact, you may have one of these in your house. If you look at your postcard and it says, scan this QR code for your oil change, that's a ProLink that looks at your location and then takes you to the scheduling page of your closest dealership. Now you don't have to fumble through, where am I, find an appointment. It just goes straight through. And they don't really care about the oil change. They just want you to come into the dealership to buy a new car. So it's like, actually, I shouldn't say that because I don't know if that's their ulterior motive or not. But like the idea of a QR code being dynamic for television and for billboard and for magazines, or even we have people that put QR codes on their business card. Even if it is hard coded to only go to one place, the future may change. And you can get really good analytics on the scan of when and where and who clicked that. So we have some really big international artists. They put the same QR code on the screen when they're performing, like DJs. And if everyone in the audience scans that QR code, they know from location, they're in Barcelona or they're in Sydney or they're in New York or wherever they are. And then they can do things like custom merch, like buy and pick up your merch because like we know you're here. So the location stuff that we have is not foolproof. If you're on a VPN, which very few phones are, but if you're on a VPN, it goes to the place you think, and from the VPN, we get to about I think it probably averages to about I don't know exactly, so I'm making this up. That's why you see me stumbling. 5 to 10 mile radius of the closest cell phone tower to where you are. So it's not like creepy, visit a link, we know where you live. It's just close enough for us to get weather and for us to get location data so that we can route you to the right place. Again, letting the seller closely match the buyer. So that's dynamic QR code used in a lot of fun places.
So let me ask you a question. I think I know the answer, but I'm not super familiar with the QR code technology. So once a QR code is created, can you change the link later? Like, I know you can on yours, but let's say I have a shirt that has a QR code for this podcast. So when I go to conferences, it has that. And now I want to potentially change it to something else. Am I able to take that same QR code that I created in Bitly, use it in your software and adjust it? Or do I have to start over and print a new shirt?
You have to start over and print a new shirt.
Okay.
The QR code is an encoded message for the machine. And you can think about the English version of that as a 2D barcode. You know this at the grocery store. 2D barcode underneath that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got the UPC on it. So I have this. This is what you just saw me walk out of frame.
Yeah.
This is like a $29 Amazon thing. If you point it at a barcode or QR code, all it does is send whatever is there to the keyboard. So I open Notepad and I can scan something and it will tell me what's like encoded in that QR code. When somebody uses Bitly or any sort of QR code generator to a URL, the only thing that's encoded in that QR code is the URL. It's literally https:// blah, blah, blah. So that's burned. It's done. It can never be changed. Now, if you own the destination, of course, you could do whatever you want once the traffic receives at that point. But our version of a dynamic QR code is like, stop at the rules engine, figure out if you want to do something, and then carry on once you have the answer to that.
That makes sense.
Okay, I said I had two more. Dynamic QR code was one. Here's the second one. Anybody in your listening audience and you with your agency and enterprise background will relate to this one. I call this after the campaign.
Okay.
So far, I've told you about these magical rules at the ProLink level. Well, ProLinks can optionally be part of a campaign, and campaigns have rules, which is phenomenal. So just work with me on that earlier example. We have 10 employees, 3 variations of the press release. All of them are going out to social media. They're using their own variations. Let's say we put all of those ProLinks that we created in a campaign. And remember, we have a press release or a product launch that's coming up first of the month. On the second of the month, I go to the campaign. Now I have 50 links in this campaign, but I go to the campaign to one place. I do a new rule. I say set destination to product page and I click save. And now all the QR codes and all of the variations, all the affiliates, all the ProLinks, everything in that campaign in a second now instantly starts rerouting to the actual product page. So after the campaign, you don't lose the traffic. Now, instead of going to the press release, you just go to the product page. And that is infinitely flexible. If your audience was following along with that, we also have rules at a team level. And a team level rule is really global. It affects every campaign and every ProLink. That's typically where we put our bot rules and we put our country rules if we're not allowed to do business in certain countries. And we put our branding and domain rules. Like when I worked at Amazon, the link shortener for Amazon, every one of your listening audience has seen this or used it, a.co. Like you get that as the text message delivery when you get a package, a.co. Like who knows how much they had to pay for that. But they have a business rule. If you ever click one of those links, you're guaranteed to only go to Amazon.com. None of the other Amazons around the world, and not YouTube that talks about Amazon from even like the president or even an event page. Like it has to be on Amazon.com. And so for me, I also have some domain rules that I enforce on our company. We're not allowed to use the 301.pro. So our company is 301pro.com, but our short link is 301.pro. And so we're not allowed to use the 301.pro that goes to anything outside of our family of products. Like, I'm not going to send 301.pro to a competitor, for example. Even though one of my employees might try, the team rule is going to override that and just return back a 404, even if it's valid. Or it's actually up to me. I can return whatever I want. But the team rule says if it's not in this family of domains, actually the technical term is host. So if the host is not in, then we provide a list of valid domains, then return response code 404. And now I never have to think about it. I can trust an intern to create links for whatever they want because my business rules will protect me from, sending 301 pro traffic to a competitor. And a lot of people, especially in the big enterprise space, have those types of rules that until now has really just been enforced by the honor system. So it's a little nerdy, but we call that rules inheritance. You have ProLink rules, campaign rules that override those, and then team rules that override campaigns and ProLinks. And I have to say, it's phenomenal. It is so fun to actually use that. Like after the campaign, you're just going to say like, there's this giant body of traffic. Now send it here.
Just move it.
So satisfying because I used to have to be the person to go update all the short links. I did it wrong. I'm human. I made errors. I probably missed half of them. And then we just lose all that traffic, right? As SEO, you want to keep the traffic flowing. So anyway, that's all I got. I think that probably is the whole system.
That's awesome.
Maybe there's some things in there that I forgot about, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I can think of a bunch of different ways I would have used this in the past with the enterprise company I worked for. And I'm thinking of ways I'm going to use it with my agency. So this is awesome stuff. This is really good stuff. I know before we get to the future, I know that you were generous enough to put together an offer. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want me to mention it? What do you want to do?
So we don't have free software, which means there is a demo if you sign up at 301pro.com. It's limited to 5 demo links, and you can't use them in production because you can't change the domain. So we have sort of a trial, but we don't have any free software. If you're going to use the rules engine, you have to pay for it. Our software starts at $9 a month. We have a $49 version. The difference between those two is it gives you more rules. And then we have a $199 version, which gives you even more rules, more fine-grained details of what you can change. So I put together a discount called DigiRev. And I actually don't know if you like this. I just made it up, DIGIREV. And it's a $49 a month discount to whatever you want to buy. So obviously the $9 would be zero. The $49 product would also be zero, or the $199 product would be $150. So it's a $49 a month discount. It doesn't expire. It would just be for the life of the program. It's effectively a free version of the software for your audience. And I'll keep that discount live until at least 30 days after you publish. I don't know exactly when that will be or how the dates get burned in. But right now we're in Q1 of 2025. So, it'll be up for at least 30 days until after that. And then, then it'll go away. So, if you like it, try it. It'll be free. Tell your friends. That's really what we ask for in return. One of my favorite things is watching users use the software. So people call it onboarding, people call it user education. But I spend about 5 hours a week with new customers just doing a screen share. So if by chance you're hearing this and it's outside that, send mail, just open the chat widget and say, hey, I would like to talk to Scott. If you volunteer to let me watch you use the software for the first time, I'll also give you a free account. Because every time I do that, I learn something amazing. In fact, I'll just say this quick little story. So our product, and you've heard me say this 100 times, 301. Technically, that's wrong. Like the status code is 301, and our website is 301. But I was watching a user, and this was a user, it's like, hey, I'll do some user research for you. They didn't know anything about the product. They were in marketing. But the very first thing I said is, okay, open our website, 301pro.com. And it died. They're like, your website's down. I'm like, it's working for me. So what'd they do?
301 instead of 301.
And then right after that call, what did I do?
You went and made a link to redirect that 301. Is that right?
Well, first I had to buy the domain. So now I have like 6 more domains,
Yeah.
.net, .com, .gov, not .gov, but like now I have a new array of domains of 301 instead of 301, and all of them work now. So for your listening audience that would like to challenge that. Anyway, the point is $49. It's a free version of the software. If it's expired, send us mail, do a user research program, takes a half hour. We'll get a version out for you or a discount for you for that. And I love watching people use the software. Like I just constantly learn new little micro things to tweak about the software, which then just makes it better for everybody going forward.
Sounds like you're a good product manager too. That's a really good product manager thing to do.
I don't know if I'm a good project manager, but I'm absolutely passionate about this particular project. And I think that stems from inventing something new. It's been a long time since I've really been excited about this, but like if I talk to 1,000 people in the marketing industry, all 1,000 of them get excited about the product because it's generally easy to understand, solves a real problem, inexpensive to get started. Excuse me. It's very exciting. So I'm happy to be here talking to your audience, all 6 of them.
There's 7. My mom watches too.
7 in your words, but yeah, it's funny.
Well, Scott, where do you see the future going in digital?
I mean, you sort of can't spell the future without AI, right? We have AI a little bit in what we're doing, particularly with our bot detection. So the magic of the way all this works is with reverse IP detection. And that's basically, how the internet works. There's a range of IP blocks where you can basically make an assertion that this person's at this location because they came from this particular IP address. That's sort of the heart of what we're looking at. And we have some AI that's helping us with the bot detection. I think, and just to be clear, we don't have any AI in the rules engine. All the rules that we talked about, like you would have to actually start. We have recipes, so you don't have to start from zero. On the screen, you'll say new ProLink rule, and it'll say like event rule before, during, and after. And then you just have to put in the URLs of where you want people to go, like, my webinar, YouTube, et cetera. So we make it as easy as possible to create the rules, but there's no AI. Like you have to think about it and have it ahead of time. Or if you then think of something, the beauty of the rules is you can change them and it starts working from that point forward. Yeah. I think if we were to predict the next 12 months for us, we would be able to, you'd also have to opt into something that I call awareness. Like if you're clicking a receipt, you know exactly where you want to go. But if this is an awareness campaign, like, 30% off this weekend, or join us for the holiday season, or something generic like Father's Day, or, whatever the holiday might be, I think we could probably introspect all of the ProLinks that you've used, and maybe you don't have these ProLinks, so maybe we look back at a catalog, and then we could dynamically send people to the right place if they're wandering. Like if you have someone that's just coming in the front door, what's the first thing you want them to see? That's what I could do at the link level. Like you send out a text message that says, hey, Scott, we haven't seen you in a little while. We'd like you to come back. Here's 10% off. What do you show the user? And AI could really help us paint that perfect front door. They're like, oh, Scott is at the beach a lot because I do scuba diving because I bought some products. So we're going to try to sell some flip-flops. Or maybe we're going to ask Scott a question like, when's your next travel destination? And I have a landing page, so I'm going to send Scott there. But, somebody else, the next visitor, which might be 1 millisecond later, has a different purchasing pattern, or even without purchasing, location, time. Think about this as people in your audience are listening. They're driving down the road. Are you the same person at 8 a.m., 3 p.m., and 11 p.m.? Like, no. You can picture yourself in the morning and like you're rushing, you got some breakfast, you're getting things ready for the day. Kids are getting out the door. You're trying to eat something. You're planning your day. Afternoon, like maybe you're working at the office or you're home. Stock market's closed. 11 p.m. You're like in your bed. You're scrolling. That buyer mindset is there for every product. So here's something your audience can do. Not even buying my product. Just have something as a challenge to yourself. Create the landing page. And your audience is now like driving, listening to this. And they're like, yeah, I just created a landing page. Create 3 versions of it: morning, afternoon, and overnight. Same landing page. And then put a ProLink in front of that just says, if it's 8 to, or make up your own rules. If it's 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., go here. If it's afternoon, go there. And if it's overnight, go to this landing page. And you'll get a higher conversion. Even if you did something like dark mode on the overnight landing page. Like, why you put a blinding bright screen in somebody's phone when it's 11 p.m.? So here's something else that you guys should think about. When I asked you that question earlier, what time is it? There's so many times. But let's go through this particular example, because now I can ask a more specific question. What time is it for your customer? And the only right answer is all times. Like, my website's open for 1 minute and I have 1,000 people come to the website. If I look at the server log, it's the same time for all of them. But now if I look at the time of all the users, I've covered the globe. Like, if I put an ad in Instagram, even if I have geo-targeting turned on, it's not 100%. Or if I send out an email, where's that user? If I send out a text message, where's that user? You're literally covering the globe with these short links. So what we do is, first we geodetect where the user is located. Then we have time. And now in that 1 minute, 1,000 people are coming. 8 a.m., you go to breakfast. 11 p.m., you go to the overnight buy one, get one free sale. Like, it's still 1 minute, but your website's 24/7. What most people are doing, and what I call real-time marketing, is I have time of day or geography-based marketing that's real-time making decisions. So everybody coming to the website has a different experience based on their current mindset. And you can amplify that with geography and with weather, if you have a product that's like that. But start with the very basic. So either create an event with a before and after link. That's easy to get started. Or create a time of day router. You could even do something on the weekends. Like, here's your first rule. Is it Saturday or Sunday? Go to the "We're closed, see you on Monday" page. Now it's not Saturday or Sunday. So the next rule says, is it during business hours? Call us on support. If it's not during business hours, send us an email. Like, all these things are great. I could give you more examples there, but like, it's all based on clicking a link, asking how we can connect to the user that just clicked the link, and then taking them to the right place. Most people just hard code and everyone ends up at the same place, which is a lower return on ad spend and a lower click-through rate.
It's powerful. There's so many things. Again, my mind is just like, okay, I got to take note on this.
I feel like I've been doing all the talking. Let's hear back from you. Like, what are some of the things you're thinking about?
Okay, so the one I was thinking about there was, could I use the ProLink in my navigation? And if they're on a desktop and click on it, go to a different page, right? Okay, listen up real quick. I promise I'm going to get you right back to the episode. But are you frustrated that your product or service isn't getting the right amount of visibility it deserves online? If so, and you want my help guiding you through the SEO optimization, go to fireusmarketing.com/SEO to get my free SEO guide. Talks about all levels of SEO: local SEO, regional SEO, national SEO, and international SEO. It should give you everything you need to optimize your website at a basic level. If you'd like help beyond that, feel free to hit me up at fireusmarketing.com. I'd be happy to jump on a call and talk through your needs. Now let's get back to this episode. Is that doable?
I'll answer this by saying all of the navigation on 301pro.com is actual to 301.pro. And then when you click our homepage, for example, we have 12 versions of our homepage. In fact, if you look at our homepage, it's a little bit janky. I'm trying to make this better, but we have 12 versions of our homepage that changes every 2 hours. And when you click the logo, it goes to 301.pro. That's the root level link. And then that says, what time is it for you? And it takes you to the right homepage. You can do that for support. You can do that for marketing. You can do that for every individual product. Yes, is the answer to your question. Navigation, I believe, should be a ProLink. And you don't lose any SEO on this because it's a branded ProLink. It's first party. So go.mydomain.com, I have the same access to cookie data. I have the same access to Google page results, page rank. It's the same domain. It's first party domain. So by going out to the ProLink and then coming back, not losing any juice on my links. At least Maybe I shouldn't say that factually because there's a lot of stuff in the SEO world that I don't know about. And
Yeah.
maybe there is something there, but it's my current hypothesis that those are one and the same. I'm linking to myself and I don't get dinged for that.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would just make sure that people are aware of if doing that is they should use the canonical tags to say, here's the primary page and canonical the rest of them back. And then you don't get duplicate content for having 12 homepages.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that goes back to the meta tags that we talked about with the canonical links. Yeah. Very smart.
Yeah. But super interesting. I love it. I think that a lot of the audience is going to just eat this up. I'm going to send it to a few friends right now and be like, hey, you gotta check this out. So I'm really excited about it. I love the real-time marketing aspect of it. I love that you can change it based on weather, based on time, based on location. Really fascinating, Scott, and I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on and educate us on this today.
It's been fun. I mean, hopefully you can see my passion coming through. Like there's so many crazy, great things that people are doing. Oh, just today I learned something new. I didn't even know we could do this with our product. The customer said, I use your product for A/B split testing. And I was like,
yep, that was the other thing I was thinking of. Yep.
I said, how do you do that? And they said, we set up a rule. So first you set up a ProLink, long link to short link. That's your A. And then they set up a rule that says, if the second is odd, go here. Like the time of day, if the second is like an odd number, then go here. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's like A/B split testing. It was never even invented for that. But now literally every click that comes through, like I guess you could say maybe it's not real A/B split testing because I mean, I don't know how people monitor it, but it's A/B split testing enough for me that like half my traffic goes one way and half goes another just based on the second variable. Like that's cool.
And based on the UTM codes that go through to analytics, you could easily track your 100%. Sales and see which one's better or worse. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's the other thing I was thinking of. Navigation, A/B testing. There were a couple others, but very fascinating. Again, I appreciate you.
Like,
go ahead.
Like Optimizely or some other product that's client-based or script-based. Once you get onto the page, that's sort of too late for us. Our rules engine is sort of like between the click and where we send the user. Once we send the user there, unless that's to another ProLink like the image does, then now it's on you to sort of do what you want. But that A/B test server side was ingenious. Like I love when the customer does something that we didn't intend, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to tell other people about that. We have a A/B split testing blog that's going to come out just because of that. We learned it from a customer.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. Again, thank you so much for taking the time today. I appreciate all the knowledge you've shared with us.
Hey man, thanks for having me. It's a great show. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. And to everyone else who's out there, we'll talk to you guys next week.